Now, the US government is proposing changes in the H1B foreign workers program. The changes are aimed at improving efficiency by streamlining eligibility, providing more flexibility to F1 students, entrepreneurs and those working for non-profit bodies, and ensuring better conditions for other non-immigrant workers. The rules have in fact been published by the US Citizenship and Immigration Services today. Let me just take you through the top 5 takeaways from this report before we go to our guests. There'll be no more multiple entries, no need for employer-employee relationship in the lottery anymore. Job offers can be remote. Automatic gap extension will be there until April 1st next year, and more and stricter site visits will also come into play. To discuss this further, I'm joined by Saundarya Balasubramani, author of a book which deals with immigration laws called Unshackled, and also Sameer Khetkar, author and a US immigration lawyer. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us. Firstly, Saundarya, coming to you, what exactly does it mean in terms of for employees or students or will aspirants who want to apply for this visa from India to the US?
Thanks so much for having me. I think talking about the employees first. So no more multiple entries essentially mean that everyone gets a fair chance. So in the lottery this year in 2023, a lot of people put in multiple applications for the same person, trying to artificially boost their chances in the lottery. So from whenever the rule goes into effect, after that, they won't be able to do that anymore. So everyone gets the fair chance. For founders, the good news is that they've removed the restriction on employer-employee relationship. So to explain what this means, right now, if let's say I want to start a company and file for an H1B through that company for myself, I would not be able to own more than 50% equity in the company, or I'd have to figure out other ways in which I can kind of hire and fire myself. But right now they've removed that restriction, so I can own more than 50% if I want to. And I don't have to dilute my equity because of that. And last but not least, for students, one of the good news is that they've changed the automatic cap extension from October 1st to April 1st of the following year. This is slightly technical, but what this means is sometimes a student's F1 visa expires before their H1B visa starts to go into effect. So until now, this cap extension would let them stay in the country until October 1st when their H1B goes into effect. But sometimes, due to processing delays, the student would not get the H1B on time. And so when that happens, they don't have a status. They're out of status. But thanks to this new rule, when it goes into effect, they will have another 7-8 months or until they get their H1B to essentially not be out of status.
Right. Sameer, coming to you, how do you think these new rule changes, proposed rule changes, will make it more difficult for the employee and the employer from both perspectives if we are to look at it?
Yeah, most of the rule changes have been positive in nature. There are a couple of alarming aspects. Number one, and I think most alarmingly, is that the USCIS is going to more strictly define what it means to be a specialty occupation. So they're going to require that degrees be directly related to the job that's being done. And so that language is taken directly from a Trump administration rule, which is a little surprising. So now this is going to make it difficult for companies who have roles in fields like new fields, multidisciplinary fields like bioinformatics or data science, fields that typically accept degrees from across the spectrum of fields, right? It's going to make it harder for those jobs to qualify for the H1B. And secondly, the rules they will require now, in codifying existing practice, that a company, when filing a petition to extend somebody's H1B status, prove that the employees maintaining their immigration status. And the way we typically do that is by showing that they've been paid. But by making this a rule for the company and for the employee, it's going to make it harder for those employees who actually were not paid by their employers to extend their status, even though it's not necessarily the employee's fault that they weren't paid, and that shouldn't make it impossible for them to extend their status.
Right, Saundarya, while we are looking at some of these proposed changes, it's also important to remind people and also important for any aspirants or visa applicants to know what is not changing. So if you could just take us through some of the main key points of what you think are some of the key rules which people need to keep in mind in terms of things that still remain the same.
I think there is honestly just one fundamental thing that's not changing, which is the number of H1Bs that is issued each year. So this is 85,000 and it hasn't changed since 2001 or 2003, I believe. So for over 2 decades, the number of H1Bs that is issued by the government has been stagnant, the same at 85,000. And of that, 20,000 is set aside for those with an advanced degree. So that is not changing. However, your chance in getting picked might still increase because they're making the playing field equal and fair for everyone, and no one can put in multiple applications on one's behalf. But the number of visas that is actually given out every year is not changing.
And that brings me to my final question to you, Sameer. When do you think this is going to, get into effect? When is it going to be rolled out effectively for applicants to note?
Yeah, it's important to note that this is not a final rule. This is a rule proposal that must go through a 60-day or 2-month notice and comment period. Once that period is complete, DHS will collect all the comments and use that to issue their final rule, which we hope will come in early 2024 in advance of the H1B lottery season.
Right, Saundarya and Sameer, thank you so much for joining us and actually explaining it and laying it out for our viewers to, actually take some of the main key points which will actually affect all the applicants on the H1B visa lottery, which is at the moment, of course, still a proposal, but there are big changes which are being planned by the US government. Thank you so much for joining us.